Hello and welcome to World Connect, your window to the world. In the next half an hour, we bring you the news from politics, culture, science and showbiz from across the globe. We bring you closer to the events that shape our lives and experiences that narrate the story of our times. Let's begin with the focus of the show. As Venezuela grapples a collapsing economy and a brutal drought, unrest spreads. President Maduro's 2-month state of emergency infuriates opposition, which is already demanding recall vote against him. Egypt airplane debris spotted in north of Egyptian coastal city of Alexandria as investigators struggle to find out the cause of crash. With 66 people on board Airbus A320 en route to Cairo from Paris had disappeared over the Mediterranean Sea. South Korean author Han Kang's The Vegetarian beats an exhilarating list of books to bag Man Booker Prize. The best of the best films across the globe battle it out for the coveted Palme d'Or prize at the Cannes Film Festival. And how the unusual karate kids with Down syndrome are defeating the stereotypes with their energy and enthusiasm. Venezuela is witnessing the most difficult time in the recent past. The country is confronting its worst ever crisis, economic as well as energy issues coupled with severe drought. The continuous dip in oil prices has cut down revenues drastically. Adding to the nation's woes is the ongoing political battle between President Nicolas Maduro and his opponents.
Long queues of residents to get their daily staples and basic needs have become a common sight in Venezuela. With subsidized goods becoming increasingly scarce, they spend hours waiting for their turn to ensure that they don't have to sleep on empty stomachs. A severe energy crisis, a worse drought and a crippling economy. Venezuelans are having the most difficult time in the recent past. Adding to their woes is the ongoing political battle between President Nicolas Maduro and his opponents.
I came here to strive for a better future for my children, for the younger generation and all the youth, because our living conditions are hitting the lowest point in history.
Facing odds all over, President Maduro recently declared a 60-day state of emergency, widening his powers to sidestep the legislature, intervene in the economy and control the streets. The decision gave rivals another reason to open a new front against him. Opposition parties have already been pressing for a recall referendum against him. They submitted petitions to the country's election body with millions of signatures demanding a recall vote. But Maduro's administration says many of the signatures are fake. Opponents fear that the government-leaning election body is deliberately delaying the plea to allow it to expire. The National Assembly, dominated by Maduro opponents, even passed a law to cut short his term, but it was rejected by the Supreme Court. Undeterred, the opposition launched protests and demanded a recall vote. Hundreds of protesters descended on downtown Caracas for a march to the National Election Board. As the venue of the protest march was cordoned off, demonstrators clashed with security forces and police, raising anti-Maduro slogans.
If violent coup-mongering acts take place in Venezuela, I will not hesitate, if necessary, to make such a decree to fight for the peace and security of this country. I will not hesitate, rest assured.
Capitalizing on public anger over the ongoing crisis and shortages, opposition leader Enrique Capriles has urged the army to switch sides.
Maduro is not above the constitution. He should be preparing the war tanks and the planes. As I say also to the army, the moment of truth is coming to decide if you are with constitution or you are with Maduro. That is a decision that the army will be responsible for making.
Esa será una decisión que le corresponderá a la Fuerza Armada Nacional Bolivariana tomar.
Revenues from oil make most of the Venezuelan income, but falling oil prices that led to the finance crunch halted some of the government's generous social programs. With empty pockets, Venezuela is struggling to import the essentials its people need. In many cases, the country only relies on imports and has zero production. With no signs of immediate improvement in the crisis, the political establishment needs to tackle it urgently before it gets out of control.
Argentina's opposition-controlled lower chamber of Congress on Thursday passed a bill to prevent layoffs in the public and private sectors. The passage challenges the centre-right government's efforts to cut a gaping fiscal deficit and spur investment in the battered economy. President Mauricio Macri, who took power in December on a pro-business platform, vetoed the bill, arguing it would block the government's efforts to revive the economy and ultimately boost employment. As of mid-April, Macri's government had trimmed a net 10,000 jobs from the public payroll, while the private sector has lost around 30,000 jobs and another 15,000 so-called informal jobs. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau apologized in Parliament on Wednesday after he rushed across the floor to hurry one legislator to his seat and on the way was accused of elbowing another in the chest. He also got into a shouting match with an opposition leader. The incident was an unusual outburst in the otherwise sombre Canadian Parliament. It was also a rare loss of control by Trudeau.
I certainly did not intend to offend or impact on anyone. I was simply concerned that, unfortunately, the decorum of this place has been impeded by the kind of preventing of the work that the whips are doing. If anyone feels that they were impacted by my actions, I completely apologize. It's not my intention to hurt anyone. It certainly wasn't. It is my intention to get this vote done.
As investigators struggle to find out the real cause of the Egypt airplane crash, the authorities are looking through the wreckage that has been found in the Mediterranean. The debris was located 290 kilometers north of Alexandria. The Airbus 320 carrying 66 passengers and crew en route to Egypt's capital Cairo from Paris went down into the Mediterranean early on Thursday. The Egyptian government has told the families of the passengers that there were no survivors. Reports that smoke was detected inside the craft shortly before the crash have emerged that indicates to a possible technical fault. The search of the black box continues and key details will be available for the inquiry within that. France, however, are not ruling out any possibilities for the crash. The Nigerian military released on Thursday still images of a rescued student among 200 schoolgirls being held captive by Boko Haram militants in the care of soldiers and doctors. Boko Haram captured a total of 276 girls from their school in Chibok, northeast Nigeria in April 2014. Part of a 7-year-old insurgency to set up an Islamic State in the north, which has killed some 15,000 people and displaced more than 2 million.
The second girl, who was among more than 200 schoolgirls kidnapped by Boko Haram in a raid on their school in the northeastern Nigerian town of Chibok more than 2 years ago, has been rescued. An email statement carried by an official government agency confirmed the rescue of another Chibok girl, adding more details were underway. The military later released a still photograph of the second girl taken at the medical facility of Abogo Larjima cantonment in Borno State. Amina Ali Darsha Neki, the first girl to be rescued, was found by soldiers working with a vigilante group near Damboa, south of Maiduguri, in the remote northeast area where Boko Haram has waged a 7-year insurgency to set up an Islamic State. Officials confirmed Amina was one of 219 girls abducted from the government school in Chibok in April 2014. The Nigerian army is moving on to Boko Haram's final stronghold in the Sambisa forest to rescue more than 200 Chibok schoolgirls after one managed to free the militants who have held them for more than 2 years.
With happiness mixed with sadness, because 218 girls are still unaccounted for. But the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And the recovery of Amina Ali is a good omen.
It is now important for our government to move swiftly together with other governments of the world and find a way to rescue the rest of our Chibok girls. The kind of decision-making, the kind of assets that need to come together, the kind of informed choices that would be necessary, this is the moment.
It was indeed an emotional moment for rescued girl's mother. After more than half a dozen failed deliveries, Bint Ali was devastated when Amina was kidnapped.
I express my appreciation to the government for rescuing my daughter. I never thought I would see my daughter after my daughter was rescued. I have had 13 deliveries and each of the children died. My 13th child is Amina.
An army spokesman said Amina was found with her 4-month-old baby and a suspected Boko Haram terrorist called Muhammad Hayatu, who claimed to be the girl's husband, was also detained. Dozens of girls escaped in the initial melee in 2014, but more than 200 remained unaccounted for.
Major powers, including the United States, said this week that they were ready to consider demands from Libya's new unity government for exemptions from a United Nations arms embargo to help establish its authority over the country. The West is counting on the UN-backed unity government to tackle Islamic State militants in Libya and prevent new flows of migrants. The Libyan government is allowed to import weapons and related material with the approval of a United Nations Security Council committee overseeing the embargo imposed in 2011. The new government sailed into Tripoli on March 30th to end the bloody chaos that Libyans have endured since Muammar Gaddafi's fall 5 years ago. Meanwhile, in a significant boost for the government, Libyan forces claim that they have recaptured one of the main checkpoints south of the city of Misrata from Islamic State. Outbreaks of deadly yellow fever in Angola and the Democratic Congo has raised global concerns. The WHO has said that though the outbreaks do not constitute a global health emergency, stepping up control measures and mass vaccination is the need of the hour. The disease has a high fatality rate. It is already spread in Kenya and China, and there is an unrelated outbreak in Uganda, generating fears of the mosquito-borne disease jumping to sprawling cities in Asia and Africa. More than 2,400 suspect cases and 300 deaths in just 4 months in Angola has been reported. This has reinforced the potentially explosive nature of this disease and the risk internationally. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Moshe Yaalon, who resigned from his government, quit because he lost defense ministry. Yaalon resigned from his post, saying there was lack of faith in PM Netanyahu, and resignation came after Netanyahu moved to replace the defense minister with a far-right politician and strengthen his coalition. The former defense minister described Israel as overrun by extremist and dangerous elements and said this was also felt within the ruling Likud party. Netanyahu, who doubles as foreign minister, said he had offered the top diplomatic post to Yaalon but was refused. Days of torrential rain forced close to 2 lakh people from their homes and killed at least 58 in parts of Sri Lanka. Troops have launched rescue operations in inundated areas of the Indian Ocean island with boats and helicopters pulling more than 200 people trapped in northwestern coastal district of Puttalam to safety. Flooded roads and fallen trees led to traffic jams in capital Colombo. Trains were halted as water submerged railway tracks. 2 landslides triggered by continuous rain buried 3 villages in a central district. More than 150 people are trapped and feared dead due to these landslides. Rescuers race to find survivors and recover the dead. Taiwan's new president has urged China to drop the baggage of history in an otherwise conciliatory inauguration speech. President Tsai Ing-wen was sworn in on Friday as country's first female president. She pledged to abide by the constitution and promised to safeguard the island's sovereignty and territory. The Democratic Progressive Party, to which Tsai belongs, has traditionally favored independence from China. The party won the parliamentary and presidential elections by a landslide in January and takes over after 8 years under China-friendly nationalist Ma Ying-jeou. China reacted, saying its position will remain the same on Taiwan issue. South Korean author Han Kang has won the prestigious Man Booker International Prize for her unforgettably powerful novel, The Vegetarian. which deals with a woman's rejection of human brutality and giving up eating meat. The 45-year-old author beat 5 other shortlisted fellow writers, including Nobel laureate Orhan Pamuk, to win the £50,000 award.
Life throws different situations. There are times when individuals want to become someone other than themselves. A dark, surreal story about a woman who seeks to become a tree won the Man Booker International Prize for fiction. Han Kang became the first South Korean to win the prize for her novel The Vegetarian. She shares the £50,000 prize money with her translator Deborah Smith, a 28-year-old Briton. 45-year-old Han was in the race with 5 other famous authors, and she won the award hands down for her first book translated into English. In The Vegetarian, after struggling with horrid nightmares that kept returning, Yong Hai, a dutiful wife, rebels against societal norms. The protagonist then forsakes meat and stirs concern among her family that she is mentally ill.
Only through this extreme narrative, I felt I could question the very natural thing that we are human beings. And I wanted to stay in the difficult question of the meaning of being human.
This is a book of tenderness and terror, full of exquisite imagery and lacerating emotion. Its volcanic, visceral intensity owes nothing to gratuitous melodrama and everything to the tact and calm of the narrative voice.
The Man Booker International Prize was previously awarded every 2 years for an author's overall contribution to global fiction, but beginning with this year, the prize is awarded annually for a single work of fiction translated into English and published in the United Kingdom.
And here are some stories that are catching attention elsewhere.
À l'heure actuelle, la menace terroriste demeure donc infinie. The Cannes Film Festival is coming to an end with 21 films competing for the big prize, the Palme d'Or. The award is the equivalent to the Oscar for film. The winner of the Palme d'Or usually goes on to be internationally recognized and also gets a lot of buzz and awards at the end of the year.
It's raining glitz and glamour with the who's who of the world cinema flocking the red carpet at 69th Cannes Film Festival. With the best of the world's films competing for the coveted Palme d'Or award, everyone is now desperately waiting for 22nd of May when the announcement will be made. The interesting lineup for the title includes films by directors across the globe. Also, the festival premieres films that are out of competition category. Director Olivier Assayas and actress Kristen Stewart were at the festival to pitch for their French psychological thriller Personal Shopper for the top race. Assayas said that the film is an attempt to illustrate the connections between the two worlds people live their lives in, that is the real world and the world crafted by our imaginations. American director Jeff Nichols' Loving is also in the fray. The film is based on a true story of a white man and a black woman from Virginia who get married in Washington, D.C. in 1958, but as they return home, where interracial marriages are banned, new struggles unfold. English director Ken Loach's I, Daniel Blake, tells the story of a kind-hearted, middle-aged Newcastle carpenter who, after suffering a heart attack, is forced to stop working. Turning to the welfare state for assistance, he is confronted with the tragic realities of a modern society bogged down by miles of cold and unfeeling red tape. Another competitor trying its luck is British director Andrea Arnold's latest film, American Honey. Arnold's fourth feature is a gritty drama that follows a group of teenagers traveling across the US trying to make money selling magazine subscriptions. A total of 21 films are in the battlefield for Palme d'Or.
Born from folklores, elves find themselves in various legends around the world. But locals in Iceland earnestly believe that the capricious creatures appear to those who know how to spot them.
Elves in fairy tales and stories have inspired the imaginations of many in modern novels too. The imaginary creatures do not just crop up in folklores. In Iceland, people believe that the elusive creatures live in rocks of the craggy island nation. According to traditional tales, the elves live in a parallel world which is not visible to humans generally unless they want to show themselves.
Most people say they heard it from their grandparents when they were children, and we tend to hear the stories of Santa Claus and Easter Bunny and things like that, and I think the stories just kind of, I guess they were told so many times that they just started to believe it.
In the Nordic island country, the belief about elves is so firm that building projects such as this highway outside the capital, Reykjavik, are sometimes changed to prevent disturbing the spirited creatures.
They made agreement in the end that the elves would leave the stone for a week and they would move the stone 15 meters. This is probably the only country in the world that governments unofficially talk with the elves and makes agreement with them about where to live and where not to live.
The capricious creatures appeared in Iceland in a literary sense and are with the people ever since. Surveys show that almost half the population believes in elves there, and until disproven, the magical beings share a home with its 320,000 residents.
Ukraine has a new batch of karate kids. Active, eager to learn, these children with Down syndrome are challenging deep health stereotypes. The physical activity, of course, maneuvers the energy and prepares the kids for wider social inclusion.
Little Vova Kachuk is a 6-year-old who loves practicing devastating elbow strikes on the gym floor. The little boy has bravely overcome Down syndrome to become one of Ukraine's latest karate kids. He is one of the 6 Down's children in this particular karate group. Coach Natalia Milko opened the first one in 2013 as an experiment to observe social progress. These children spent the first 2 years working out in separate sections while getting used to each other and becoming comfortable with how each group behaves and performs.
For 2 years, we were working separately. There were lots of great difficulties during the adaptation process. Kids like these are in isolation here, and they know how to coexist with other people only through their parents or special schools, where they are surrounded by kids with the same syndrome. We spent 2 years getting them used to each other, and this year I made a radical decision to mix the groups.
This vibrant group of children has now knocked out stereotypes that have pervaded for generations.
This experiment is successful. These children made physical and technical progress and developed an interest. They have already joined us during off-site training sessions and performed in competitions.
The 48-year-old pioneering instructor has made great efforts to overcome the red tape involved in making all this possible. However, the pain she undertook has succeeded beyond her own expectations. Children with Down syndrome have made physical progress and developed a keen interest in sports. They get to kick, punch and run around. They get a proper channel to release their energy. 10-year-old Denny's mother says her child has become much calmer, more thoughtful and attentive since joining this karate class. The parents of these kids believe that taking part in social activities with other children is essential for their healthy and happy growth.
This brings us to the end of this edition of World Connect. Do send us your feedbacks. You can write to us. Our email ID is worldconnect.ddnews@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook. But before we leave, let's have a look at Queen Elizabeth II's official birthday celebrations in UK. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.